Mr. Gambetta, do you intend to make an opening statement?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Mr. Thornton, do you intend to make an opening statement?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment constitutional privilege.
Mr. Gambetta, did you produce your immunity agreement this morning as required under the subpoena?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
As I understand it, you were one of the 2 employees assigned to PRN in the Clinton account. Did you send or receive this email?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
If I understand the email correctly, every single employee at PRN could have accessed some of the most highly classified national security information that has ever been breached at the State Department. Can you prove that no other individuals accessed this data or even passed it on to someone else?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully refuse to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Well, one last one here. Mr. Gambetta, you're an IT guy who's paid by the Clintons. Generally, IT guys don't erase their clients' emails unless they're told to do so. So who told you to delete the emails?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Do you plan to continue to assert your Fifth Amendment rights? Is that your plan? Is that your plan?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully refuse to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
And you, Mr. Thornton?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment.
Given that you have indicated that you do not intend to answer any questions out of respect for your constitutional rights, we will now excuse you from the table. Mr. Thornton, given the vulnerabilities identified by Datto, are you aware of any hacks of PRN's systems?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment constitutional privilege.
Were you interviewed by the FBI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment constitutional privilege.
You can't answer the question about whether or not you were interviewed by the FBI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline.
Given that the witness has indicated he does not intend to answer any questions out of respect for his constitutional rights, we will now excuse Mr. Thornton from the table.
A masked and hooded pro-choice activist smashed pro-life signs on display at Ohio University. The display was created by members of a group called Created Equal. After beating the posters and objects with a club, the attacker turned toward a pro-life staffer who confronted him, threatening him with violence. Law enforcement was then called to the scene. Mark Harrington, National Director of Created Equal, said hooded and masked thugs behaving violently towards a discriminated minority brings back memories of the KKK. In this case, preborn babies are the object of the hatred. Ohio University police are still looking for the suspect.
To the index of other news, in a home invasion stopped in its tracks, a woman in Georgia confronting 3 armed suspects, retrieving a handgun and exchanging fire inside her home. One of the suspects later died. Authorities tonight asking for the public's help identifying the 2 other suspects. Yahoo confirming a massive hack tonight. The web portal confirming today it believes a state-sponsored actor stole information from 500 million customers at the end of 2014. The stolen information could include names, emails, passwords. Yahoo is contacting users who may have been targeted. The FBI is investigating. And a type of bumblebee may soon be added to the endangered species list. Federal wildlife officials recommending the rusty-patched bumblebee to the list after the insect count has disappeared by 90% over the past 2 decades.
When the State Department declared that Christians in Syria and Iraq were facing genocide, many hoped support for those communities would follow, but it has not. New Jersey Congressman Chris Smith has introduced bipartisan legislation that would provide relief to victims of genocide in Iraq and Syria and hold accountable those responsible. Advocates are surprised legislation is even needed to pressure Congress and the president to protect those communities facing annihilation.
In the midst of this genocide, saving Christian and other communities that face extinction in Iraq and Syria is part of your mission. There is nothing unconstitutional, illegal, unethical, or unprofessional about prioritizing their need to survival as communities. They are innocent victims of a genocide. If these victim communities are not receiving aid, you are not fulfilling your mission.
Some also expressed grave concerns more Christian refugees have not been accepted into the United States.
A high school teacher in North Carolina was placed on leave after pictures showed him stepping on an American flag.
Lee Francis says it was part of a history lesson about the First Amendment. In a picture taken by the student in the classroom, you can see Francis with his right foot on the flag. Students say that he took the flag and placed it on the floor before stomping on it, and now many are calling the act unpatriotic. Francis says that he has received hundreds of angry emails, even death threats.
I put it on the ground, and I'd use my right foot and I take 2 steps on it. And immediately 2 kids get out of the room. We have a level of students that are mature and are expected to be mature. And so, no, that was not the reaction I was expecting.
Francis continued to defend his actions, saying the case that he was teaching about directly protects this type of freedom of speech. That is the Texas versus Johnson case. And now that 1989 case looked into whether flag burning constitutes symbolic speech protected by the First Amendment. The ruling was, yes, it does.
A Rhode Island man has been convicted of plotting a lone wolf attack for the Islamic State. Nicholas Ravinsky pled guilty to conspiracy, including a plot to behead conservative blogger Pamela Geller. Prosecutors said he wanted to murder Geller for her outspoken criticism of Islam. Ravinsky faces a sentence of between 15 and 22 years.
Disturbing video to show you now the harsh consequences of overdosing on opiates. And we want to warn you that this is hard to watch for so many of you. You can see a mother right now lying unconscious on a store. You're about to see it. Store floor with her 2-year-old daughter as she cries so desperately. There's a video there trying to wake up her mom. The woman collapsed from an apparent drug overdose in an aisle of a Family Dollar store in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Just heartbreaking there.
It really is. A clerk called 911. Paramedics arrived just a short time later. They were actually able to revive the woman with Narcan, which is used to actually reverse opioid overdoses. She now faces child endangerment charges, but investigators say that they do not have enough evidence to actually charge her with any drug-related violations.
On Capitol Hill, a U.S. senator is looking into the legality of President Obama's transgender bathroom guidance to every public school in America. Oklahoma Senator James Lankford says too often the Obama administration attaches new regulations to old laws in order to get around Congress. His subcommittee on regulatory affairs this week questioned representatives from the Departments of Labor and Education about how they justify the sweeping guidance.
I mean, they just created this really odd rule that takes away people's individual privacy for the sake of preference for another group. We need to be able to protect all groups in this process and to be able to honor. They need to have some basic what's called notice and comment. They created this rule, didn't ask anyone, just tried to impose it. That's not how we are as Americans. We're still a country of the people, by the people, for the people. And when the people get cut out, it doesn't work.
Last month, a federal judge in Texas blocked the president's bathroom guidance. The Supreme Court is now deciding whether to hear the case. Langford and other critics of the regulation say issues regarding bathrooms, locker rooms, and dorm rooms should be left up to local and state governments.
President Obama vetoed a bill on Friday that would allow families of victims of the September 11th attacks to sue Saudi Arabia.
The president said the bill would hurt national security interests and that it could open the doors for people from other countries to sue the United States. But that isn't the end for this bill. Congress is expected to override the veto for the first time in President Obama's presidency.
IRS Chief John Koskinen faced angry Republicans in Congress Wednesday over the IRS treatment of conservative groups in 2010 and 2012. Conservatives are hoping to impeach Koskinen after accusing him of lying, ignoring subpoenas, and heading the agency that destroyed documentation. Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah told Koskinen he should pay the price for destroyed documents that are considered evidence.
It was a mistake for those tapes to be erased, and I testified with the finance
We know
committee.
it was a mistake, but they were erased after a duly issued subpoena. That's where we have a fundamental problem. You issue 66,000 summons and email and subpoenas each year. You know how to dish it out, but you don't know how to take it.
And so we issue a subpoena. We expect you to comply with it.
After a campaign year of trying to remove Koskinen, Republicans still hope to.
If you're a Christian and you come into the military today, be careful. Your worldview will come under attack. You know why he knows this? Well, it happened to him. Chaplain Motter was told to hit the road and clean out his desk after the Navy didn't like his counseling on preaching the biblical view on sexuality and marriage. Motter fought back and he eventually won. But once again, another Christian under attack for their biblical beliefs. The Brody Files' Abigail Robertson spoke with the former Navy chaplain recently here in D.C.
Can you just first tell me about what you have been through for the past couple of years?
It's been difficult for me, but the good news is I won, and the Navy exonerated me from all charges. They put me back on the promotion list. They gave me back my retirement, of which I just retired this week. So I'm speaking to you now as a retired Navy veteran. But a couple years ago, I was detached for cause, brought up on charges for being intolerant, that I didn't care, in private counseling sessions. After 19 years of no blemish on my record, doing great ministry to our armed services, men and women, the culture shifted and policies have changed, but Scripture's not changed. So in private counseling sessions, my responses to faith, family, sexual questions as an ordained minister in the Assemblies of God on active duty as a Navy chaplain, those weren't received the way they had always been received in private counseling. They were taken out, there was charges filed. They fired me from the job, and it was an 8-month ordeal. But I just want to thank the Lord for His faithfulness, because the church stepped in. So I thank God for that it was a religious liberty win. It really wasn't about Chaplain Wes Motter per se. And so the Lord has opened up other doors. There's more positives that have come out of it. I cry easier. I think I preach better. I love my wife more. And I am now the newly elected senior pastor of Stone Church in Chicago, Illinois. And so all of these things happened for me to be able to be where I'm at today, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that.
After you won your case, first of all, what was your reaction to that?
The first thing I did when I got the paperwork, I drove home, tried to not be emotional, and I hugged my wife, and I held her, and we cried, and thanking and praising God for His faithfulness, because really it's nothing short of a miracle. Typically people don't recover from this sort of thing. But I want to encourage your listeners, I want to encourage the body of Christ that, sometimes trusting God is a moment by moment thing. Sometimes you have to relearn how to trust God. But ultimately I knew the Navy would have my back. Ultimately I knew the Navy would do the right thing. They needed to be coerced. I thank God for the First Amendment, our Constitution. We have good laws on the books to protect people from religious liberty attacks, government discrimination. So the body of Christ can be encouraged and strengthened in knowing that there's the big church out there. And when the church comes, when God uses the church, we have a great country. We have great laws that protect us.